My name is Rhapsody. The name of the game is Blueprints, and welcome back with Doing Gaming. Allowance of 25, give it to me. I'm also immediately going to go outside, because if you give me the trade and stop, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to trade, never stop. Shelter, shrine, and schoolhouse. You know what I haven't done in a while? A schoolhouse. Yeah, let me go to more classrooms. I haven't gotten to go to many. Really, not a single apple? I know the apple would have aged by what? That schoolhouse closed in 66, so that apple would have aged 27 years. It would be almost twice as old as the player character Simon P. Jones, who is 14. Let's get some schools! Time to educate him. Ooh, den. Great way to open there. That is our first classroom, but it's next to a commissary, and commissary is offering items. I'm going to take the commissary. Gives me a lot of latitude over the run. Courtyard. Storeroom terminates, but also, like, is kind of okay. Courtyard has 2 gems and costs 1 gem. I do want gems in this run. I also don't want to terminate too many paths because the classrooms look like they probably terminate paths. Oh, gotta go in here. It is metal detector. Kitchen mailroom and... I want that mailroom. Give me that mailroom. Amateur lockpick kit, 2 keys and 2 gems. Thank you kindly. Decent amount of resources be starting. Whoa, hang on. You're telling me there's more? Where is it, buddy? Oh! Key hiding under the stool over there. Good, good, good. We've got it. Classroom, and it's leading out in a direction I do need to go. Sure. It also says, while drafting in classroom, you may draw new floor plans 1 time for each draft in your house. Hallway leads in directions I want as well. Well, classroom kind of leads in the same directions. Yeah, there's grade 1. I want to go to the commissary, and I want to go to the other things before I start following the classrooms. Oh my god. Yes, I will take a slovel and a sledgehammer, please. Also, give me a Sompus and a Colt Shaker. Absolutely sold him out. Library, and it leads in good directions. Chapel when I don't have money to give it. Oh boy. Oh, but the library also has the thing that I really want to see, but I could also draw the library in the future. Maybe go through the chapel first. Damn. What's going on in here? You hiding a key? Oh, no, just a couple coins. Oh, I shouldn't have picked those up yet. Locksmith pantry and guest bedroom. I could put a locksmith here. I'm going to take pantry instead, though. And I'm also going to leave through there. Yeah, library's leading back in the direction, so I don't have to go draft the second out of the chapel, but also maybe I should have. I forgot about the fact that I literally could for no downside. Ooh. The Curse of Blackbridge by Redford Ewing. Forward. The legend of Blackbridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm, for versions of this tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming more, over the years, more colourful, more verbose, and, as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, with so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale to text seemed an ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet, the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of this tale capable of capturing all the myth and wonder of Blackbridge. In the end, I chose to write down what I felt was most authentic, the story my grandfather told me as a boy long ago. Part 1. The Berry Picker from Oris. Many years ago, before peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that the locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws composed of society's worst in a time when society was at its worst, and for each crime that fearful travelers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, Highland robbery. One such jester. Nope, I'm reading ahead. One such member of this so-called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper, who had not been lucky in life, having lost 2 brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived on the gutter behind a churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks of the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child aiming to escape such hardships would take the easy road out. An easy and well-traveled road, paved with temptations leading out of the city into the gentrylands, where loose purse strings entwine with strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jasper to the end of his youth, a hidden cave in the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. It was here that he met his surrogate family and saviors, that notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted and was often regarded by the group as being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry picker. It was not just innocence that set berry picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he worked alone while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest treetops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn afforded meant Jasper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worrying of being chastised or tarrying upon his return. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination, and along the way, Jesper had passed by many a familiar bush, all priorly pillaged, and so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patience has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to this long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in this new grove surprised even Jesper. The red dots suspended in the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the night sky. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and very nearly toppled over out of joy. Once he regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this newfound treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. Smiling at his plan, Jasper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in the task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage! A carriage is approaching! The thought of it made Jasper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he'd neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept toward the impending sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment more before the sound source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jasper hid, an elegant carriage with gold trim came soaring around the corner of trees, led by two beautiful white horses, and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated regalia Jasper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage. It was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jasper was certain. The sight so transfixed Jasper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy, he pulled the reins with such an effect that the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. You boy, get out from behind that bush, he shouted with rigidity that betrayed a modest amount of fear. You startled me half to death, coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face in a place where there ought not to be any face. Jasper quickly contemplated running. The man was much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behavior, not dashing through the bramble and mud. I was just picking berries. Jasper raised the half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanor of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jasper was familiar with. He had many times seen the same stern expressions on the most fiendish bandits melt away when presented with a berry basket. Any suspicions that the driver might have had instantly evaporated, for even the notion of a member of the unholy hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression even made allowances for a smile. Berries, say, you couldn't have picked a better spot for them, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy. Jasper took his cue and finally stood out from behind the bush, proudly banishing his basket. I know! And what luck I found them! I've only just been picking, and look how many I have! It would have taken me fourfold the time back home to procure this number. The driver bent down for a closer look. And where is your home, boy? It must be quite far. Jasper replied with a scripted response. A little south of Tanner Fork, just past the burnt woods. My God, that is far. You couldn't have come all that way only this morning. It was true. Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction that Jasper had traveled, and while that response would seem perfectly reasonable in a location closer to Blackbridge Canyon, he could see why it might seem less believable here. Sir, I've traveled much farther for much less profit. I dare say there's no distance yet made by man that wouldn't be worth undertaking for a prize such as these. Surely you've tasted them for yourself. Jasper felt happier with the response as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. In my youth, often, but perhaps I took it for granted because I never had to travel very far. Even then, my father would always drive us here in our carriage, so I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn my equal reward. It was Jasper's time to smile. Then let my efforts reward both of us today. He raised the basket even higher. A taste in memory of your youth, sir. The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket. At the moment his fingers touched the first berry, a dagger in turn met his throat, cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood. Jasper caught the man's startled eyes. And for that taste, I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth. The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he'd ever been before. Whether unable or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged in at this particular time. Jasper let the basket drop, freeing his other hand to probe the man's pockets.
Do not mistake me, sir. I'm not going to kill you if you give me no cause. Though I will admit, the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you with the indignity of walking appeals to me.
Unable to find a purse in the man's coat, Jasper pivoted to search the seat under him.
Why have you no purse on your person?
The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing toward the carriage door behind him. Jasper lowered the knife's edge a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did, in turn, softly.
There's a lockbox in the carriage.
Well then, come down and grant me the courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands. A concession, I assure you, of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat.
The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself from the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jasper guided him away from the carriage to a nearby tree, where he instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jasper while he figured out how to adequately bind him. The smile and kindness Jasper had seen on the man's face, now nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes displaying no emotion.
I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you're showing me?
Jasper stopped, surprised. Oh, it's the other way around. Whoops. Jasper stopped, surprised by the question but ignoring it, securing the final bindings and then hastily returning to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man.
If there's no lockbox, there will be no clemency.
Inside, the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unswept, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage in this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jasper had suspected, that the driver of this carriage was not a liveried servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned upon seeing what rested under the carriage's back seat, a large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jasper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, two observations were made. Totemic symbols found carved on all four sides of the box hinted that the box was very old and likely not created by Arinthian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the old world and was presumably crafted in one of these ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusty yet robust padlock that would not easily open without a key. Jasper looked over to the driver, quietly observing from his indentured position.
Do you, perhaps, have a key that you can provide me to open this box?
Without emotion, the driver replied,
There is no key to that box.
Jasper stood up.
Easy enough, then.
He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up whilst carrying it to the box. If there was ever a time that a lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jasper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised how heavy it seemed, given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly into the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had suddenly returned.
You are cursed, boy, and deadly is the stone. You have opened that which you should have never opened, and you are cursed.
Jasper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face.
What is it?
That's one.
Feeling his disappointment rising to anger now, Jasper tightened his grip on the effigy.
One what, you mumbling adjutor? And in God's name, why do you have no purse on your person?
The man did not seem intimidated.
1 pace.
He paused for effect.
12 more and you will be dead.
He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If ever there was a time when the old man had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. Jesper looked down at the sculpted stone figure, now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had, of course, heard stories of curses and had never doubted their validity in the past, but now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And if he was cursed? What difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul, to say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he stood, he could maybe live another 3 or 4 days, maybe more given the abundance of nearby berries. A plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do? To be discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries, and raving about a curse that that could very well not be real. No. It would most certainly be better to face one's fate now, take a dozen steps, and see if life goes on. But Jasper found his legs unable to take that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limb to waste away 1/12 of his life in single motion. Feeling the desperation set in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution. And, if by some stroke of luck the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him as if he found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. 2 white horses and a carriage of golden trim were beside him, the answer to his immediate prayers. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4. Perhaps only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking such a task was too great to leave to chance. And so, after a profound breath, he took his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th steps, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horses, he reached for his reins and suddenly realized that he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it would most certainly be better left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of such a figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox, whose typical function oft secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jasper found his mind equally reluctant to let this hand go.
If it is cursed, I die. If not tomorrow, if not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I?
And with that statement said aloud, to the horses seemingly, Jasper took up the reins with confidence. Part 2. Below the Blackbridge. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have the cheek to awaken her in such an ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she stared up at him in darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again, teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on 3rd watch today. Quietly collecting her things and wits, Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend, who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful not to wake the sleeping bandits around her. Like a hero in a book, she often mused. Quietly, she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly formed pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked towards the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved, and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was strictly forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting behind a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn, Miller followed. Ravia reached across to grab the water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room in maneuvering in this tree post. a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail up to her mouth most dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she'd been. Miller laughed silently at the water pouring out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound. But Miller appreciated the efforts Ravia took to verbalize the silence of the morning. They had been on third watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time, their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly rather scarce among the holy hounds. The unholy hounds, rather. And un is just difficult to read. She had felt camaraderie before, but of course, but intimacy, never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance of the cavern as well as a clear view of the bridge that spanned across the canyon. Blackbridge was the link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Orris and Reddington. I'm starting to get a little bit of a clue how this is relevant. To the city-faring travelers of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task was to ensure the travelers passed without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of her band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-housed bandit, it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day, there was no shroud to conceal her expressions, nor to hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, subtly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary. Gestures quietly forged in the shared solitude of their month among the branches. She watched as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboard beneath them. Miller knew what she was trying to say, but shook her head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back towards the canyon. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller, too, heard the sounds of approach. Ravia held up two bent fingers, and a few moments later, two men emerged from the bridge's southern end. They were dressed in a familiar uniform, long grey coats with black facings, white waistcoats, and black tricorn hats. They belonged to the local patrol, the Blackguard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence at Blackbridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveler's impending passage across the bridge, information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight when the Blackguard was nearby. The men had nearly reached the bridge's north end when Miller heard the horses, faintly at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Ravia's eyes met Miller's, the same concern mirrored in each other's expressions. This did not sound like the typical carriage, cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead of the familiar crunch of high road's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking through the foliage. The sound was not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had knocked an arrow and drawn her bow. Go! Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down the bank below, racing towards this cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. This was a Blackguard attack. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. She had expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing her thought, her second arrow was in the air. Without a trail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such rough terrain, and yet she watched as the wheels jolted over rocky riverbed. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into a small ditch, slamming into an embankment. The force of this sudden halt immediately shattered the front two wheels and catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced down over her shoulder to see if any horses were also approaching from the rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the unholy hounds came spilling forth from the earth as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seems even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized. They had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Jeffrey Heartslasher, led the others, cautiously approaching the crashed carriage like a suspicious fox would a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of them, the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him, a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jesper had always been her favorite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted, she had always called him, though deep down she had known that wasn't quite true. His appearance of gentleness concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a flower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness, in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy they had found beside him served as a distinguished gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords marking nearby plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and rattling from the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking string of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled the space around her, but even in alarm, the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes tight and used her feet to guide her around the passage. The whispers were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard, louder speech than she had ever heard spoken in the canyon. A growing dread grew as Miller approached the mouth of the cave, her eyes now open wide despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness, pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed two bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. Two bent fingers confirmed what Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. An hour or so later, the screams began. Blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fodrick Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave.
"Ah," he grinned. "Now they speak."
I really enjoyed that story. I'm immediately trying to figure out how it is relevant. Because we have seen in the grotto outside, which is named after Blackbridge, a note saying, let's hope that it doesn't turn out like Blackbridge. I've also seen Blackbridge referred to in some other notes, but not many. Also, the Children of Blackwater certainly sounds like the people under the Blackbridge. So I wonder if the descendants of the surviving unholy hounds also represent a faction at play. I'll note as well, yeah, sure, Blackbridge, there's a king. Before peace had become a familiar word. The berry picker from Orus. Yeah, Orus, the town, was named after the first king, Orus. So that means that Arindia had already been established. Actually, we have further confirmation of that. When someone says, I haven't seen a design like that in Arindia. Oh, no, it was of the effigy, saying that it was likely old and not crafted by Arindian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the old world and was presumably crafted in one of these ancient realms. The idea of having a number of paces remaining until the end of your life as well kind of tracks with a little bit of the mechanics of this game. Obviously not the end of our life, but the end of our run. I will also add that one of the clues in the Sanctum room, that is in room 46, one of the clues to where the Sanctum keys are is the fifth key is held by a king on his throne. I've mentioned before that I know from the notes that I have taken, multitudes of them actually have pointed in this direction, that the capital of what is currently Fen Ares used to be Arinda Ares, used to be the full kingdom of Arindia. We know that the capital used to be in the secluded mountains of Reddington. The most secluded mountain of Reddington, of course, being Mount Holly. So we're presuming that Mount Holly was that. We also know the foreman saying that we've uncovered an authentic black print that was alongside, I believe, the Trove when we discovered that, and said we are excavating the ill-fated Arindia. So I wonder if the palace of the previous king exists below Mount Holly's estate, and we are excavating that, and we need to get to the throne room in that palace in order to access that Sanctum key. I need to take some photos, of course. I'm giving a little bit of close inspection to the pictures, but I'm also not seeing much information represented in these pictures that is identifiable or unique. There is exactly one at one point, which I will point out. And that is... I mean, we can see a little bit of the shape of the effigy there. Kind of looks like a rose on top, a hand on the bottom. Yeah, the only real information in this book that we have is that little sigil of Arindia. Sorry, the only information we have in the pictures in this book, rather, is that little sigil of Arindia. Redford Yuling. I wonder if that name's going to come back up. Oh, right, we were doing a classroom run. Sorry, I just had to read you a story for a while. Actually, I don't apologize about that. I really enjoyed doing it. Laundry room, rotunda, can rotunda, but I don't need it to. Yikes. I mean, I'd like the rooms not to terminate here, but like if I take the rotunda, I'm spending 3 gems on something that will not rotate her. Like I'm not going to actually be doing that. I guess I put a laundry room here, so in the future I can come back and launder. I obviously can't freeze my accounts right now. Literally end my run right now. No, thank you. No, actually, no, thank you. Ari, the end our run with what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 rooms? Actually, no. No on that one. I'm good. Thanks. Ooh, library is another drafting room, so we have 2 rerolls coming out of that classroom now. That is what I wanted, to draft additional classrooms before I have to draft through a classroom. So very glad to have gotten that done. Observatory leads in the right direction. Don't know what to tell you. That's going to be what we do. Clovis the key, farmer's apple, and a pair of chests. Hell yeah. And I do have a sledgehammer, so I could just go pop those bad boys open as well. I really do want to do that sooner rather than later, but I think my path up here is going to end up terminating, and I'm going to have to go back through that classroom. I didn't even notice that there was a broken lever in here. Okay, that's huge. Ooh, darkroom security. I mean, darkroom goes north. Nice, but security will give me security. I'll have the ability to muddle with this keycard system a wee bit. Make it low security right now, but also set the offline mode otherwise, and then back out and then exit. Ooh, classroom, and it's leading back in the other direction. Yeah. When drafting in a classroom, you may re-roll for each draft space, so I can re-roll 3 times. Unfortunately, both these classrooms are leading out the same way. I'm going to go out this one, the one for class 2. Oh, apples are extra delicious today. I already know what the mathematics worksheet was telling us before. Yeah. I got 4 available rerolls. I mean, a classroom that leads up into the foundation would be ideal, but I don't know if they can do that. I can just pop a hallway here that literally, like, it's so open. No. Ooh, pool hall. That's Great Hall, Foyer, and Secret Passage into today's draft pool. Utility closet? End my run? I don't think so. Pool hall. It's gotta be. Those additional rooms are going to be very, very handy. Okay, so 2 times by 10, 20, minus 12, 8. 10 times by 2 divided by 10 is 2. Minus 1 is 1. Okay. 20 divided by 20 is 1, times by 9 is 9, times by 4 is 36, minus 20 is 16. Ooh! Now I know how to use you! Yes. Broken lever and sledgehammer. I mean, I'm saying we're pretty close to being able to use a power hammer. Funeral parlor, garage, and nook. I'm gonna take a nook. I could spread fruit around the house whenever I want by using the key. Indoor nursery, bedroom. Yikes, I really wanted these to point out in the other direction. Terminating here is definitely not a good idea, but indoor nursery is a good idea for us. I'm so reliant on this pointing north. This doesn't point north and runs over. No more school. School's out forever.
West Wing Hall, thank you.
Thank you so much. You want to give me a locked room up here now? Yes, please. I'm going to use the secret garden key. I'm just going to get it done. Why? Well, let me tell you why. Foist things foist. It opens the side that I find most accessible right now. That's one thing's. That's one thing's once. It can have items. It spreads fruit all around the house. Apples are extra delicious. You want more fruit. It spawns 2 additional gems back in the nursery, which I will intentionally now go back and pick up before continuing. Because I would like to be able to draw further green rooms, which would then give me further gems, which it's a virtuous cycle. Though do please let me draft over in the other direction. I would love to go there. All of them lead up. Boy. I should get Funeral Parlor so that I'm ready to deliver some additional gems as well. Office is nice. Office is nice. I do like office. Can I have some classrooms again, please? I miss classrooms.
Drawing room.
And it goes north. Yep. Opens 2 directions that could be relevant. This room has always confounded me. Because it seems like this is very prominently placed. You wouldn't be able to use the magnifying glass on it either. Ah. Ah. Okay, the candles aren't the same. Can I? Yep. Big price? Huge price. Gigantic.
Oh.
No! No! I don't know the safe key. Ah! Why? Okay, gosh. It's got to be a date, right? It's always got to be a date. Here we are in the drawing room. It is a picture being drawn of Herbert Sinclair. I'm gonna start with Herbert Sinclair's birth date, which was in the 1920s. No? All right. Well, let me go to my book about Herbert Sinclair. Well, Herbert Sinclair wrote Safe Code 9083, and that was a lie, but also I don't know if that's related to this. It should be related to The Office. No, it's not related to this. Born 1992. Sorry, born 1920, rather. Died November 4th. Let's try 1104. Sets it to his death day. Maybe I don't need to use a leading O. It's just 411 or 114. That is a no. I don't know any more numbers. These are all of the numbers I know. You were in the Baron Bafflers. Died on November 4th in the morning at the age of 73. Attended Camp Colonel, little boy. I think damn it. Is there anything in this room that would hint at the last drawing room? Does drawing room hint at something? Drawing floor plans, you'll always draw. Is there a holiday about drawing? The width of the it's the width of their stride. It's always the width of their stride. Is that related? Stride. There's this little distance marker. It seems like it's there to demonstrate steps. Each of these is a step being taken, not necessarily the stride. Step? What if I translate? No, but it has to be a date as well. So it can't just be like the translation for step, which would be like, what? On a standard key, I think it's 8, 8, 3, 5. Nope. Okay, yeah, it's what is related to step? What is a day related to step? Step, go, proceed, move, leap, jump, leap year? 366 days in a leap year? I don't know, man. What about February 27th? Leap day? We don't know if this world has... Hang on. How many days does February usually have? It's like 28, right? Yeah, it's 28. Okay, so, what about 0229? Leap was a stretch. Only one of these is really leaping. Step. Gate. So in the book A New Clue, one of the things that the author's insert for Bon Margle was looking at was the overlap between gate and gates. Gates and gates. Gates, G-A-I-T-S, refers to the particular style of walking. These are gates. If we count small gates, 8 safes crack 8 dates. 8 dates crack 8 safes, rather. 8 dates crack 8 safes. What does Gates tell us here? Like, is this related to something related to a character called Gates? We know of a character called Gates, but unfortunately we know almost no additional information about him. We know his name. Which eventually I'm going to be able to find it. Count Isaac Gates. Count Isaac Gates. I don't. If we count small gates, 8 dates crack 8 safes. But the thing is, this guy's name is also Count Isaac Gates. Isaac equals small? How do I represent that as a series of numbers? Five. It's not 5. The answer isn't just 5. I need more information. Don't seem to be able to pick this lock. Armory's not bad. Veranda will give us the gems back and gets us to the corner. I feel compelled to reroll though, literally because like give me a classroom. How'd they not give me a classroom? Hall. It's locker, sauna, and pump rooms. The taste drop ball. Wine cellar. I could even terminate here, get some additional gems, try and use those. Give me the pool. Still got those I can bust open. I've still got the ones at the entryway as well. Classroom, thank you. Not only classroom, but a classroom I can draft. And a new classroom. A classroom I've literally never been to. Foist things foist. Pop these bad boys open. Take an additional gem and 3 additional keys. Some additional money as well. I will try and draft out to the north of this. Guest bedroom from additional footsteps. I'm going to take the hallway closet, actually. Ivory dye is a huge hand. And rabbit's paw used to be. I do want to exit through that classroom because I have the ability to reroll multiple times from there. But I feel compelled to head back to the indoor nursery and the entrance hall before I do so. I also haven't used that funeral parlor. I could just pick up 2 additional gems before I leave. Actually, I do think I'm going to want that sooner rather than later. That portress has nothing to tell us, I don't think. Gems are in the black box, says this one. Gems are not in this box, says this one. The statement on the other 2 boxes are true. Okay, so, assuming this is true, it can't be, because it says the other 2 are true, and they can't all be true. So this has to be false. Which means I have 1 false one. This says the gems are not in this box. And this says the gems are in the black box. Both of those could be... Both of those can't be true, because if they were, then the black box would be true. So one of these is a lie. This says the gems are not in the... Wait. Both of them could be lies. The gems aren't in the black box. If that's a lie, they're not. And this says the gems are not in that box. If this is a lie, they are in this one. However, is there a possibility where one of them's true and one of them's false? This is true, says the gems are in the black box. And then this one's would also have to be true. This one could be false, saying the gems are in the black box. But then it would suggest that it's in white or blue. And then this one, the gems are not in this box. So if we said this one's true, this one has to be false, in which case it would be saying that they're in this one. Hang on. I've got 2 different solutions that work again. So that would be true, false. Wait, no. False, true, false. Fine. 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 Yeah, no, all of those could hold together and put them in this one. And there's also true, false. Wait, no, both of them can't be false, obviously. Because this one has to be false. So they are in the blue one. That's true, that's false. Got it. Also got another 2 to pick up from the nursery. I do have a shovel, but I would really like to upgrade the shovel before I start digging with the shovel. Oh my god, I didn't actually take the green room. I thought I took veranda, that's why I came here.
God, I really just want to get the ability to go out in the other direction, please, mate, please. There's so much unused room over there.
Oh, an apple. Yum. Those are extra delicious today. What, no apple for the classroom? Do good for it? Huh? Punk? Ooh. Take my banana and another apple. Good lord, it is a third apple. Pop these bad boys open. Whole mess of gems. I mean, I'm getting fruit to offset the footsteps to get the fruit. Should I dig up the ones in the courtyard first? I'm never going to come all this way back to the courtyard. It's unlikely to give me unique items, which is really what I would want from it. Oh, worthless shoe. Right, yes, there's this grade 1 that I never went into. Because I know everything you could teach me. I think. Apparently the metal detector is not going to go off for any of the fruits, so I've got to find them myself. I just wanted to break my teeth on some fruit. Count Isaac Gates. Count 15 AAC gates? I don't get it. But I will one day. And then I'm gonna do one of the... Oh! It's gonna sound like that. It didn't happen. Sorry if you were vaguely focusing and now you think that I actually solved something big. No. I'm getting us ready for the way that it will sound when I do. Inevitably. There's so much to dig here. Should I dig it? Can I dig it? I'm gonna hold off. One more classroom. This is my first time in 3rd grade. Periodic table elements. Yep. Yep, that's those. Science is fun. F-U-N. Fluorine, uranium, and nitrogen. So that's a hint, I imagine it's solving the... At solving the puzzle in the laboratory. Name, Jacob. Science worksheet. Use the elements below to form the answers to each of the questions. H2O in liquid state is called tear. Drop. H2O in solid state is called ice. H2O in a gaseous state is called water. Buddy, I gotta tell you, I know. I know off the top of my head that 2 of these are wrong. And I'm not even in 3rd grade. I haven't even done 3rd grade in ages. So, real embarrassing for you, buddy. Quinn S. answered H2O in a liquid state is called water, in a solid state is called ice, in a gaseous state is called Mrs. Peterson. Disrespectful. See me after class. What air, ice, and gas, but there's no gas. There's none there. What do you have? Vapor? What is it? So, what? Air. I see. So the final one is. Wait. AM. S. TE. Steam, of course. I was like, what word is it implying? Maybe I have to figure it out. Maybe it's mist or something like that. No, it's just steam. It's exactly what you would have expected. Alas, I don't think there's really anything for us to actually learn here. I do think this is just hints for a puzzle that we have already solved elsewhere. However, I do now get the opportunity to search for a classroom. Passageway. It absolutely, it simply does have to be. As much as I want anything else, I need the ability to draft more rooms. That's the first and foremost. I end my run if I don't. So I do. Also, I have no keycard, so we need a keycard. Walk-in closet, you say? Yes, please. 4 items, some reasonable chance of getting a card. We got car keys. I'm feeling like we don't have a key card in here, by the way. Telescope. Oh, dear. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dearie me. I really wanted to go to school. You gotta admit, I wasn't really being offered many opportunities to proceed north, despite this bad boy. Good lord. I just wanted to go uppies. Why? Yeah, no, I don't think there's anywhere where I can generate a open door in that passageway, and that is the final open door. So we get the benefit of having checked out the library. That's one hit. We saw the 3rd classroom for the very first time. That's cool too. And realistically, the biggest benefit here is the 2 stars that we get from the observatory. I'm gonna head back and get my 2nd. I don't know if there's a chance that like it gives me something stupidly helpful. Also, what the hell, man? Gates. What about the... Maybe gates implies count from the books that were missing in the office? And I'm supposed to figure it out from that? The March of the Count. The March of the Count. The March of the Count. Marching Count. Nope. None of these are giving me any additional information. I don't know when the violent suppression of Fen occurred. The March of the Count. Let's try March 10th for when peace was declared, because General Teskin, who led victory for Fen was military and that was March and it's in March? I don't know. Look, I'm going long guesses here. 0310. 310. 10-3. 10-03. Yeah, it's none of them. What about 1886, the year that peace was declared? No. 1929, when the railways were disbanded. 1924, when the princess was born in exile. All right, buddy, you straight up got me. That's all I know. God damn. Featherfall, hang on, we have some dates here that could be relevant, possibly. Lord Epsom left his thing to his son. Lionel Epsom left never to return when Lord Epsom died, but it didn't say what date he died. What about the marriage of Clara, 1951? Well, I don't know what to tell you. March of the Count. Is it possible that this was going to... I'm literally looking for numbers in my book right now, basically. I'm gonna guess 8, 7, 3, 10, 1, 13. 8, 7, 3, 10, 1, 13. This isn't a date, so it wouldn't make any sort of... Okay, it's not. I'm glad it's not that, to be honest. Still Arindia. Yes. All right. I don't have enough information to solve this one right now, unfortunately. Alas. I'm going to head back down to the observatory. Look, I'll dig these on the way. There is a 0.000 chance. So I'm keeping out hope for that. This has something like a keycard. I don't think you can dig up a keycard. But I'd feel silly if you could and I didn't try. Unfortunately, we didn't get the workshop nor a power brick, so we did not have the ability to bust open the secret garden door. Obviously a stated goal of mine. Oh man, the run is so generous with resources except for literally the ability to continue drafting rooms. That's the only one that I want to be stingy with. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. As long as I say it's fine, right? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That's why I sound like this is so fine. I'm only crying because of how fine it is. All right, let's go telescope. Another key. Twins. Clavis. Okay, hang on. 2 more have been added out here. Alright, I will say this one does have a possibility of having a... Alright, well, that's going to be the end of the run. There's absolutely nothing I can do in a laundry room that'll be relevant, but also I haven't been in the laundry room yet, so I might as well go in the laundry room yet. Because I don't know, what if there is just a keycard lying in here? There isn't. And I could have told you that from the outside. Alas. I think this is where we end our run today. A lot of book reading progress, and that's what we're going to call this one. We got the absolute bookworms today. Time to try and translate that bookwormery into value as of tomorrow. Until then, though, we have the west-facing schoolhouse. We do indeed. 3 classrooms, west wing favored, 10 steps, 92 steps taken, 10 items found, 9 ranks reached, 27 rooms. I'd love my next one to be about almost twice as large as that, ideally. Until then, though, my name has been Rhapsody. The name of the game has been Blueprints. Hopefully you've been enjoying yourselves. Playlist is on the top left. Series below it. YouTube recommendations below it. A special thanks this episode to Kimaru. Hopefully y'all have been enjoying yourselves. And hopefully we'll see y'all next time.